people hanging out on the front lawns dressed in summer weather, regardless of what the temperature is. And it was always fun. And I always like Cinco de Mayo. And people were giving me some creative feedback for not talking about the 4th of May yesterday. So may the 4th be with you, obviously. And Star Wars started to lose its shine for me around Jar Jar Binks. And by the time, and the pod racing and Anakin Skywalker's terrible acting, and then by the other trilogy, the trilogy that's supposed to take place after A New Hope's trilogy, the first trilogy, it just got terrible. They had CGI characters. There was some cool stuff. The Yoda fight was okay, I guess. The Clone Wars were okay, I guess, but the trilogy after that I thought was absolutely terrible. And it was one of those things where I was like, this whole cultural thing is, I don't know, it's different than it used to be. And that's frustrating for me. Anyway, that's the reason why I was giving it shade. Anyway, I digress. Today is VE Day in the EU. VE Day is actually May 8th, but they're celebrating it early and they're doing some things to bolster it and other things. So other places have canceled the parade because it's too elitist or something like that. And you can read into that exactly what they want you to read into that. And we'll talk about that later. Mark Carney is aligning tightly with Ursula von der Leyen, and there are tweets and he's saying, we're going to do lots and lots of trade. And again, I don't think this is the solution to our issues with our bad policies, our bad governance, and our missteps on our relationship with the United States. But here we are, and it doesn't really matter what I think because we're going to do what Mark Carney thinks anyway, regardless. Carbon taxes are just another way to say tax the air. And it was never supposed to be possible to achieve the goals they set out. It was supposed to be this unending tax that basically just cripples the economy. And we'll need communism in order to manage all of this. And Danielle Smith is coming out with solutions and saying, hey, we've reduced emissions by quite a lot by making these changes, and we can help you reduce emissions quite a lot too. And the Canadian government doesn't really want to listen to this whole province of Alberta. So it's an agenda. It has nothing to do with actually reducing emissions, because when people actually reduce emissions, Ottawa doesn't seem to care, and that's interesting. Reform in the United Kingdom won a bunch of local elections last night. They beat the Conservatives and the Labour Party, which has not happened since the end of the Second World War, and so that's something to see. And a lot of people are saying Nigel Farage has made a deal because he doesn't sound like the old Nigel Farage. He sounds like a watered-down Conservative version of Nigel Farage, so that's interesting as well. Although he is talking about removing people from England and deporting people and things like that, which is different, but it makes me cautious because if you need a hero, we will provide one. And here he is up on a silver platter, right? So same interesting caution about Trump. 100% tariff on foreign movies, says Trump. He says, we don't want movies made outside of the USA because movies made outside of the USA are propaganda. But let me tell you something. Movies made inside the USA are also propaganda. New wildfire in Alberta. And so we had that whole election period. We had all of the beginning of spring started. We're into May now, no wildfires, and all of a sudden Mark Carney wins and bingo, bango, bongo, we've got wildfires. I don't know about all this. So despite my distaste for Star Wars and all of the IP since Disney bought it, and a little before that too, still, there were some funny memes from yesterday. Here's Trump as a Jedi, and I thought, strike me down and I will become more powerful than you can imagine, right? Here's Trump. Trump is a Jedi facing off against stormtroopers and using his dual lightsabers to return their blaster shots, right? Obviously. And here is Trump as a Jedi, looking very ripped with a couple of eagles behind him and a couple of American flags. And the White House posted this. I'm not even kidding. Happy May the 4th to you all, it says, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting hard to bring Sith lords, murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, and well-known MS-13 gang members back into our galaxy. You're not the you're not the rebellion. You're the empire. May the 4th be with you, they say. So you can't get away from the memes, man. You can't get away from the memes. So again, if I could send things back in time, I feel like 2015, the Donald would love that meme. They'd love that meme. And they'd like AI as well, I think. Unacceptable Val says, let's talk about our Canadian election because there's still fallout and there's still things that are going on with regards to that. Unacceptable Val says, if we keep accepting fake elections, how long before we accept no elections? So we are going to watch. I think what's going to happen is we're going to slowly transition to a weird kind of horse race thing where Google Analytics or some version of a specifically built elections version of Google Analytics, or not Google Analytics, Google Trends will be built. And then your country will have like a horse race line to follow, and you follow this line, and it's like, oh, Google searches for your preferred candidate, in-depth research about your candidate, how many podcast things for your candidate, and so on and so forth. And all these metrics will be mixed up into, obviously this is your candidate, this is the person that you've decided on using all of the metadata. This is way more accurate than an election. You don't even need to go to an election. This tells us where an election, this succeeds where an election fails. It'll be sold to us as this amazing evolution. You don't need to go to the election because we know what you want, because we're monitoring your internet traffic. No, don't take it in a creepy way. And they'll do it in a funny way, and people will be like, ha ha ha, uncomfortable laugh, and then they'll look at the camera and they'll move on. And it's terrifying because people are lazy, and they like to be lazy, and they like things just handed to them, and they like thinking that, yeah, I've got to say, even though I haven't done anything, it's magic. And it's just not true. You're being fed a lie, and you want to believe it. And so you make the circumstances so you can believe it. And they will provide that if you don't make them. So they're doing that now. And we're in the process of phasing out elections, and people will just be fine with it. And they'll say, if you want to do elections, fine, but we know what people want. I think they're going to phase it out. Here's Mario, and he's responding to something happening in Australia. Anthony Albanese, riding anti-Trump wave, claims victory for Labour Party in Australia. Opposition leader Dutton loses his seat, accepts full responsibility for party's defeat. They did exactly the same thing in Australia that they did in Canada, and they used the same policy market polls. They did all of the same stuff exactly to a T, and everybody's just fine with it. We're not even going to really investigate. If we investigate, there's nothing to find, right? We're not going to fix this, and voting our way out of it seems less and less likely. Holly Doan says, managers, I was wondering, and I don't know who's on this list because I don't have a Blacklock's membership. And so my hypothesis, though, because I was wondering, why did Juno News get created? What circumstances led to Juno News being created? A slice of a $500,000 pie might create a Substack that will do news and create a partnership between Kian and Candace, right? Maybe. So here's what Holly Doan's reporting. Managers of Michael Journo fund that paid cash for election coverage refused to disclose how much was given to each Canadian media applicant. Election 2025 fund totaled $500,000, $500,000. List of recipients here. And it's paywalled, so I don't know. But I don't know. The Hub Canada is another one, right? Who else? Who was taking this money, and why aren't we allowed to know? And in what denominations? And is that why Juno News exists? I don't know. Just one of my gut feelings. I was like, oh, that's why they made Juno News, to qualify for whatever this is, so they could qualify for that. Because I think True North is still there. They were just posting on Juno News leading up to the election, starting in like January, right? So how long does that fund? $500,000 or piece of $500,000, $250,000. How much are you getting? $100,000? What's it worth, right? How much does a Substack subscription cost? Not much, right? So like the risk reward there is like, well, maybe we'll get $100,000 of government funds, and if not, then we'll pay $10 to Substack and move on, right? Like, I don't know. It seems very plausible to me. Here's Frozen Bell, and she says, I'm seeing a lot of people claim that Elections Canada encouraged people to bring pens, that no one was being told to vote in pencil only, that no one was denied the freedom to vote in pen. Clearly, that's not true. If this happened to one person, it happened to others as well. This is one of a long list of discrepancies in this election. Where is the outcry and demand for electoral integrity from the Conservatives? Yeah, they're deafeningly quiet, right? It's all I can not hear. Here we go.
No. So you're telling me that I cannot use a pen to vote today?
Yeah, as per the Election Canada rules, you're supposed to use the pencil only.
So I cannot use a pen?
You cannot use the pen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so...
Is that guy part of Sochi's gang? Jeepers creepers. You cannot use... Never mind. I'm not trying to be mean. I couldn't understand what he was saying, and I had to double check that this was in English. I'm not even joking with you. I apologize, but my goodness, it seems like they're teabagging us. You know what I mean? It seems like you're on Xbox Live and you're playing Modern Warfare 2 against a 13-year-old, and he's way better than you, and he's trash talking you. That's what it feels like right now, and we're the recipients of the trash talk, and we're not allowed to say anything about it. Weird. I understand Greg sometimes, better. Here's Sheila Copps, and I'm pretty sure she lives in Mexico. I'm 99% sure I saw an interview of her, and no joke, she was in a Mexican hacienda. Like, you could see the Mexican kind of stuff in the background, including a Mexican landscape type deal. And she had a glass of wine, and she was doing some kind of press. She was on like CTV, and I thought, this has got to be like, she's joking, right? I should have recorded it. I don't think I had a phone on me at that point in time, but I remember seeing it and thinking to myself, does she understand that she was an elected official and has some kind of decorum? Like, this is insane. But I guess people in the House of Commons came out of the bathroom completely naked to streak at the House of Commons. So anyway, Louise says, I had a rideshare driver yesterday here in Grand Prairie, Alberta, who immigrated to Canada 1 month ago. In our discussion, he asked why Albertans want a referendum to leave Canada. I shared my personal opinion why and added, as an Albertan, I too want a referendum to separate. During this chat, he told me that when he immigrated last month, he was told he had to vote Liberal. I got the impression he truly wanted to know why he was told that. He said he did vote as he was told. He then added that in India, where he came from, there is something very similar happening regarding a split in the country. Isn't it interesting? Isn't insisting a new immigrant vote a certain party election interference? Yep. I wonder how many people were told that. I wonder how many people were told you have to do this, right? And Sheila Kopp says, immigrants can't vote until they become citizens. Your story is bogus. And there are a lot of examples of people who are very new to Canada, 1 month, 2 months, whatever, however long they've been here, and they get election cards in the mail. If they have a driver's license, they get election cards in the mail because they've been added to the voter rolls. And that's usually how it happens. So, and that was started in the United States by the Democrats. So, unfortunately. Julia says, it amazes me how few conservative voters are willing to call out the problems with the Conservative Party and how many are utterly hostile to voices calling for reform of that party. Nevertheless, those same people openly criticize how conservatives like David Cameron, Boris Johnson, and Rishi Sunak played key roles in the destruction of the UK. They can see how Angela Merkel was instrumental in the destruction of Germany. They can see how Mark Rutte was a WEF-oriented wrecking ball in his country. They can see how the likes of McCain, Romney, Bush, Cheney, and so many others were destructive in America, truly Republican in name only, rhinos. What better evidence do they need to maintain a deeply critical eye towards judging establishment conservative politicians in Canada? And yet, when it comes to their own country, all that insight and critical thinking goes out the window in favor of blind tribal loyalties, even as the party drifts even further to the left and fails to ever address any of the core issues that are wrecking our country. I've made a comprehensive thread of the issues following where the Conservative Party falls short, so I won't relist them here, and you can check that out. The point is, Poilievre does not deserve to continue on the helm of the Conservative Party, not because he lost, but because he does not address, much less fight for, any of the core issues unraveling our country. He cannot fix what he's not willing to confront. Instead, it's just a sea of shallow slogans. Indeed, the entire party is philosophically rotten to the core and has been for a long time. It's fully captured by a globalist mindset that eschews conservative and liberty-oriented principles. It's a problem that goes all the way back to the Harper and Mulroney eras, if not further. Remember, Preston Manning's reform movement started in 1987 during the Mulroney era. The West's problems are far deeper than just having a Liberal Party in power. Canada's direction remains unchanged. Even when Conservatives come to power, the decline is merely slower than with the Liberals at the helm. Remember, even Harper banged on the climate change drum and let Canada's embassy participate in the maiden coup in the Ukraine in 2014, and Mulroney signed us up for the anti-oil climate lie, which now serves as the load-bearing myth of the global socialist movement. Yes, if we undo that, there's no reason for any of the rest of it. The differences between Liberals and Conservatives in Canada's Parliament is merely window dressing. Beneath the fluff is a unified and continuous governing belief about how our system is structured. Stephen Harper even spoke recently that he was proud of the continuity that Canada enjoys, even as a government changes hands between parties. That shouldn't be something to be proud of when you see where that has led us. Perhaps Politics is just a team sport in Canada, and Conservatives are okay with that. I'm not. I view our country as fundamentally and structurally broken, and I view our Conservative Party as a major obstacle to fixing what is broken because they are repentant defenders of the status quo, refusing to tackle any of the core issues and core beliefs that are wrecking the country. In his January interview with Jordan Peterson, Poilievre stated explicitly that in his view, Canada has the best system of government in the history of the world, the parliamentary system, not the best government, but the best system of government. How's that for a giant middle finger to all the Western provinces, which have been begging for decades to reform our Senate, which is purposely designed to neutralize the Western voice in government? I viewed Poilievre's comment as among the top 10 biggest betrayals of what conservative leadership is supposed to stand for in this country. The current Conservative Party is a byproduct of merging the Reform Party with the Progressive Conservative Party after Mulroney's Conservative Party collapsed. Preston Manning's principles, objectives, and reforms were supposed to continue under the new merged Conservative banner. With those few words, Poilievre exposed that his party, like their Liberal peers, is little more than a vehicle by which the Laurentian elite hold our country hostage and milk us as their fiefdom. That comment alone should have ousted Poilievre from the leadership and perhaps from the party altogether as a betrayal of the founding principles of his party as it was created in 2003. Yet inexplicably, one of the things, just as a quick aside, people were saying that this is the best showing Conservatives have had since 1988, best showing the party's had since 1988. And I said the party didn't exist in 1988. That party collapsed and a different party took over and they languished for years. And then the the Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, was created in 2003, merging those parties together to consolidate the right because they were splitting the vote and losing all the elections, right? Like, it's interesting how the Conservative Party and even the modern media at Rebel News, I think it was Rebel News, is just reimagining history. It didn't exist, period. Like, the party started existing in 2003. Anyway, back to this. Inexplicably, Western Conservatives continue to support Poilievre. Have they forgotten everything that Preston Manning's Reform Party once stood for as it fought to liberate the West from tyrannical federal overreach, from Senate reform, provincial resource rights, adding property rights to the charter, deficit reduction, regional fairness, etc. Instead of holding the Conservative Party's feet to the fire, we're now looking at a full-blown separatist movement in Alberta and Saskatchewan, rightly so, but it's actually kind of pathetic to think that the West will now take the more extreme leap into separatism, yet failed to hold Poilievre and the Conservative Party accountable and continues to support Poilievre's continued leadership in the party even now. Why isn't there a massive outcry of anger at the party's effort to use an uncontested by-election in Alberta's Battle River Crowfoot riding to reinstall Poilievre as the head of the party without a leadership race? Conservatives all cried foul at the obvious crowning of Carney at the head of the Liberal Party, yet allow the same with their own party instead of forcing a much-needed leadership race. After all, Poilievre could participate in that race again to try to earn support. But to crown him uncontested, even as he fails to address any of the long-standing issues raised as far back as Preston Manning's reform movement, is just another symptom of just how weak the Conservative Party's commitment to democracy in Canada is and reveals how little it is prepared to do in practice to ensure that Canada actually works as a political umbrella for everyone, not just for the party bosses and their influencers over the Laurentian East. This looks like Stockholm Syndrome to me. Snap out of it, show him the door, at the very least install a leader in the Conservative Party who, as leader of the official opposition, will advocate for a smooth transition if Alberta separatism actually happens. Do you think this apple muncher will help open the door to Wexit or stand in its path? It's not going to happen. The only way Alberta separates, and I've got an Alberta series of tabs later in the show, the only way Alberta separates realistically is if they say, we are now severed, we are done, we do not belong to Canada anymore, and we'll do the paperwork whenever you send us the paperwork, Ottawa, whatever we need to do, we'll get that done. But the structure existing that did exist before is done now, and we are in charge. The new structure is now in charge. We are not a part of Canada. We are an independent, and that's that. We don't have to do anything else. There's no referendum. There's no this. There's no that. There's no loopholes or hoops to jump through. There's no nothing. We're done. Send us the paperwork. We'll sign it, but we're done. That's the only way it works. Anything else, you're getting played. Anything else, you're getting played. If you're gearing up for a referendum, you're getting played. You're getting played. Okay? Promise you. And I know this to be a fact. Okay? I know it to be a fact. We'll see you on the other side. Holly Doan says, Black Quebecois MPs described the Prime Minister's enthusiasm for having King Charles open Parliament in the symbolic act of sovereignty as strange. Quebecers reject this institution. Get this guy out of here. We don't know who this guy is. King who? Charles? Yeah, I don't know. Bye. See ya. Tracy says, I just wanted to show you this. This is terrible. Cowbell beer. I don't know if you drink this, but it's like the Bud Light of beers. Right? And Tracy says this is spotted at the LCBO, a bitter, sour beer with notes of high crime and rising debt, heavy on the palate with out of control immigration, lack of housing and jobs for young people, a crisp finish that'll bury corruption, and a 10-year record of failure. Enjoy with other rich people and public servants. Right? So it's not a very good beer. Let's talk about grab bag of governance. And Desiree says, total BS from Mark Carney. Mark Carney says, I had a productive call with Ursula VanderLyon this morning, and we're ready to build on our free trade relationship, bolster economic security, and work side by side on shared defense and security challenges. When Canada and the European Union build together, our futures are stronger. I don't believe Mark Carney. Ursula VanderLyon responded, and she says, spoke with Mark Carney to congratulate him on his election. It was the perfect opportunity to reaffirm the strength of the EU-Canada bond and the many opportunities that lie ahead. We discussed how to build on the success of CETA and agreed to explore deeper cooperation on defense and economic security. So none of that is good news, in my opinion. And do you remember during the election when Mark Carney said there's a crisis that we need to address, and I'm the guy to address the crisis, and we're going to work on all of these problems toot to sweet, and we're going to do stuff fast and all of this stuff, and we're going to be waiting until the 26th to open Parliament and the 27th to have a throne speech? Goblin says, people tell me that Alberta can't separate because we don't have a government. Jim is sharing this meme. Parliament does not reconvene until May 26th. The place has been closed since October 24. That's 9 months of taxation without representation while giving themselves a pay raise April 1st. Canadians should be disgusted by this. I'm disgusted by the fact that they've figured out a way to govern the country without any kind of bumps, without a government, without Parliament functioning, ministers in place, but no functioning government, no question period, no way to hold the government to account, no way to bring down the government if things go badly, nothing, no way to do anything. And everybody's cool. Everybody's cool with it. If we don't need a federal government for 9 months, why do we need them at all? Is that valid? Is that a valid question? I think it is. I mean, they've completely screwed this up. And also we should get rid of Doug Ford because he's a liberal. But honestly, the federal government doesn't do and hasn't done much other than take away our freedom. So if it's been 9 months and nobody's noticed, why do we need them at all? Get rid of all of them. Remove their power, remove their money, remove their funding, remove everything about it, and that got done. Just wrap it up. See you later. They're not doing their job now, so what'll be the difference? I don't see it. Carla says, you know how you know the Liberals don't care about Canadians? How long they've already prorogued Parliament, and now they're planning on going on summer break? I thought we were in a crisis, Mark Carney. Maybe you should earn your keep and get to work. Pierre got that. Everybody said that he was smiling big smiles during his concession speech. I don't know. And I did see the concession speech, and he was smiling and clapping and stuff. But you have to put on like a brave face. Crying with Mark is not good. And if you're the leader of a political party, you don't want to go out there sobbing like, I'm real sorry, I messed it up, guys. Like, it's not going to work. That's not good. Gov.exe says the average Canadian MP's annual salary, including bonuses, is $239,000, while the average Canadian's income is $64,000. Why should MPs earn nearly 4 times more than those they represent? This is the real wage gap, and that needs to be addressed. Yeah, we should definitely have parliamentarians should make what the average Canadian makes, because then they're incentivized to help the average Canadian make more. If the average parliamentarians paid 4 times what the average Canadian makes, they're out of touch with Canadians because they don't share their Canadian struggles. They can afford a driver and maybe a person to go grocery shopping for them or whatever at $250,000 a year, right? They should be compensated, but they should also understand this is public service, right? Like, you don't get to just sit around in that building and look down your noses at us poors and make laws. That's not how this is supposed to work, right? You're supposed to be there temporarily as a representative of us. You're not supposed to be our betters. They don't get that, and they pay themselves as if they're our betters. We should strip all their money. Like, I think it should be a lottery. I think there should be no parties, like no party politics. Maybe the public directly elects the prime minister, like a election specific question. Who do you want to be prime minister? And these are your candidates. And then everybody gets to vote for that. And the prime minister can run in a seat to get, one of the ridings to get a seat, but maybe I don't know how that would work. The details of that are kind of muddy for me, but fundamentally, the prime minister gets to make his cabinet from the elected MPs, and somebody can take the mantle of opposition to be the opposition leader or whatever. And I'm sure it could work, because what's happening right now, clearly not working. And we need to have drastic reform. But I mean, good luck, right? Mario says, when will Carney hand over those documents? At the end of the last legislature, Polyev was successful at filibustering Parliament and stopping them from doing any other business until the documents surrounding the Green Slush Fund, ArriveCan, and all the rest, all of the fraud that was going on through the procurement businesses and things like that, people spinning up their own companies and voting to give contracts to those newly created companies, or sitting on boards of other people's companies and turning a blind eye to that corruption, right? They were trying to get the documents related to that, and that was holding up business for quite a long time. So now, I guess, people are starting to say, hey, are we going to get those documents? I don't know. Mario says, this is Canada's biggest cover-up. I haven't forgotten that they've froze government for months because the Liberals refused to produce documents that would likely get them arrested for fraud. They raided our damn money while increasing the carbon tax, and this is supposed to be the party that cares about the environment. They can never tell us again. They can never tell us again after what they did. Yeah, I think that it is a big cover-up. I'm interested to see if this is going to get any kind of play in the new legislature. I think it's going to be papered over. I think Carney and Polyev wants to use it as a vector of attack. I'm not sure if they can still use it as a vector of attack. And I don't know if Carney is experienced enough or has a team around him experienced enough to counter Polyev's personal knowledge of the procedures, because he seems to be a well of personal knowledge about what you can do and what you can't do in the House of Commons. And that seems to be a foil. It foiled Trudeau. And so we'll see if Carney can counter it. Here is this guy from the Winnipeg Sun, and he is saying, Mario again says, home equity savings, that's how the Liberals will make up for their spending, and new records Carney is going to set. So here's this guy speculating on how they're going to fundraise through your home. Here we go.
The government runs out of money, and when they do, they have to find new sources of revenue. That's when you come in. That's when your house comes in. You know, the total home equity held by Canadians is over $4.7 trillion. It's one of the largest pools of private wealth in the country. For millions of Canadians, especially baby boomers, it's the only retirement fund they have. They don't have big pensions. They have a paid-off house and a hope that it will carry them through their later years. Yet, the Liberal government has quietly been circling that money. Now, some people claim this doesn't affect them because they don't own a home. Or worse, I've heard some say, good, tax the rich. But owning a modest home in Winnipeg, Saskatoon, or Halifax does not make someone rich. It makes them responsible. And punishing them with new taxes isn't equity. It's theft disguised as fairness.
Absolutely. And so that's what we're heading for. Victoria says, I was at the LCBO chatting with the manager there who I know. I asked her, do you guys not have Kahlua? And she said, no, because it's American. So the LCBO has pulled all American products. And I'm left wondering, has that had any impact on anything? Nope. And Crazy Woman says, the LCBO also pulled Bacardi rum from the shelves. Bacardi is produced in Puerto Rico. Ontario used to have a Bacardi plant until Kathleen Wynne's cap and trade deal had electricity prices quadruple and they closed up shop. A lot of customers complained, me being one of them. The LCBO went to court and won. Bacardi is now back on the shelves. As for Mexican-produced Kahlua, it shouldn't make a difference if the distribution center is in the States. How else is it supposed to get to Canada from Mexico? I would think that Bacardi also gets to Canada via American distribution centers. Funny that Doug Ford hasn't shut down American Amazon distribution centers in Ontario, eh? Interesting indeed. Here is the CBC arguing with Andrew Scheer about the reality of the quantitative easing and the government creating dollars. And the CBC host is saying the government didn't do that. And Andrew Scheer is saying, yes, they did. And that's what drove inflation. And I think that Andrew Scheer is correct. And it's interesting to watch CBC hosts try and minimize the damage done by conservative politicians. Here we go.
Your party may not be able to rely on post-COVID inflation crisis that was fueled by, war in the breadbasket of Europe and supply.
David, you know this. You know that inflation is caused when governments print money.
Well,
that's what the Liberals did. The Liberals flooded the economy with brand new cash. It has nothing to do.
They spent money. They didn't print money. The Bank of Canada did not increase the number of banknotes in circulation in the economy. They used settlement balances. They used settlement balances to buy government bonds to put liquidity. I'm not being dishonest.
They created money out of thin air. They massively expanded the money supply. You know this.
They did not permanently increase the money supply, Mr. Scheer. But anyway, I don't want to have an argument on monetary policy. They used
and so when they did not permanently increase the money supply, so they used one trick to flood the market with money, and then they used another one to tighten the market, the amount of money in the market. And this is supposed to balance it all out. But like you and me and everybody else who goes to the grocery store and everybody else who has to buy products like chocolate's just gone through the roof. It's unbelievable. And a whole bunch of other products that are around that use any kind of process, whether that be supply chains or if we produce it in Canada, the prices have gone up. Like if milk's gone up again. They're increasing the price of milk. It's insane. And so they are claiming, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe your lying bank account. Only believe our CBC hosts. And I mean, my whole thing is, I think they're probably all lying. So believe your gut, believe your bank account. Look at those things and like they're real. And you should be informed by that. This is kind of an invasion news. Marty up north is saying experts, and I don't know which experts. So I was going to look for experts, but again, I'm busy and I've got things to do. So I'm like trying to get things done. Experts, and I believe this is probably true, but again, I haven't double checked this. Consider a healthy immigration rate as no more than 1% of a country's population. That allows time for infrastructure to keep up and for the new arrivals to adapt. Here's the recent population growth for some key provinces of Canada. Alberta, 4.3%. Prince Edward Island, 3.6%. Ontario, 3.4%. British Columbia, 3%. Carney is going to make our problem worse. Canada's high immigration rate is a replacement project. 27% of people living in the country were not born here, and that number will be 50% within the next 39 years. So what do you do? What practically do you do if you can see this? Seeing this gives you an advantage because you can have the advantage of moving early, and moving being like responding early. What do you do? What do you do? I think that and we're going to get into. Hold on, maybe it's right here. I think that fundamentally changing the population, the demographics of the population to something like 50% white or lower, and not just white, but 50% Western, 50%. The foundation of the country was built on, if that's eroded to less, and it doesn't matter with who, it could be people from Islam, it could be people from South Asia, it could be people from Middle East, it doesn't really matter specifically where, just that they're not from Canada, it destroys the cohesiveness of the country, right? I don't think it's necessarily about race, although people will make it about race. But this woman's making it about race. This is an American, and it will change the demographics changing in the country, change the policies of the country, and all of a sudden you don't have a situation where the best people get the job, the best people for the job get the job, and where everybody's pulling for the same thing, and we're all trying to make society better together, and we're all working together. You get a big fracture, and then you get people in charge who are making rules, and they say, you know who's actually the problem? You get South Africa is what you get. You know who's actually a problem? Those people over there who have all the resources that we want. Those people are the problem. And then you get this. This is not a joke. This is a sitting, I think she's a congressperson. She's in the same as AOC. So she's a representative the same way AOC is a representative, I believe. And she's not kidding. Listen to what she's saying. I think this is already in Canada. We just don't hear it, because if we hear it, we have to respond. Here you go.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men. I would say.
There you go. Right. And so floating this lead balloon at first sounds like that's batshit crazy. But the longer they frame it, like, oh, your position is a radical position. Now there's a difference. If you're just a white person who accepts everything that's happening, then you're no problem. But if you're a radical white person, we need to re-educate you. And there's the differentiation. There's the way they can separate you. Do you believe in open borders? No. Oh, you're a radical. Now we can throw you in the gulag because you're a radical, right? And so that's kind of scary. Here, I have to talk to you, Alberta. We have to meet me at camera 1. Okay. I have only one camera. They're going to screw you. They are going to take if you are serious about a separation of the Alberta from Canada, approach it like you want a divorce and your significant other has no idea and you want to protect yourself. Now, I'm not divorced. I don't know anything about the divorce world. I'm not trying to cross streams here or anything like that. But I've read on Reddit that in order to do it correctly, you have to have your paperwork in order and then do a certain amount of things in very, very quick succession, or you will reduce your chances of having a clean, good divorce. I don't know anything. I don't know anything about it really, but it seems prudent to, and like television shows as well, kind of say, you have to do this, 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 and this, and do it quick. Anything that takes a long time, if you're living in the second bedroom for 2 years afterwards, it's going to be real messy. Everybody's going to be very confused about what's going on. There's no real path to an exit that will work properly in that situation. And this is similar. This is designed to make it so the separation process takes as long as possible. And if you go into this system, there are multiple exit points. There are multiple points where it fails, it fails, it fails. And when it fails, the whole thing fails. And all of the work done at this stage and this stage and this stage, if it fails at this stage, oh man, that's years of work. Don't do this. Don't do this. They are going to screw you. They're going to screw you. You are going to get screwed out of what you want. If you want it, do it first and then say, send your paperwork and we'll get it back to you, Canada. But this is the independent nation of Alberta, and you don't run us anymore. We're already separate from you. We don't need anything else from you. We're all done with all of the rest of it. That's the end of the negotiations. Bye-bye. That's it. If you don't do that, you're done. And anyway, Rise of Alberta says, Alberta's roadmap to independence is clear. Separation from Canada will unlock transformational prosperity. Don't let the critics distract you. Process of Alberta separation. Do it first. And then inform them that it's been done and say, we'll sign whatever paperwork you send our way after our lawyers check it out. And here's a piece of paper that says, Alberta is now, doesn't have to give you guys anything. Screw you, Ottawa, Alberta, right? Done. And sign it and we're done. Don't fall in line with this because this is going to mess you up. So it goes citizen initiated petition and then a referendum and then negotiations and then finalization. Which one do you think, man, like we could have fun betting on this. Which one do you think that it's going to fail at? I think negotiations are going to break down, right? I think the finalization part is going to not happen. The referendum will say no, right? It'll fail at the referendum. Maybe it'll fail. I'm telling you this. If you want it, do it and then inform them that it's been done. Jeffrey says Canada has never honored treaty rights. I've fought them in court for 34 years and I'll say what others won't. Alberta's independence isn't a threat to Indigenous rights. It's their best shot at finally being respected. And so that's Jeffrey, and he's a prominent Alberta independentist and I think maybe 51st stater as well. And so I think that that's interesting. I don't know how to make it more clear. I wish I could like jump up and down a little bit and tell people for super serious, for real, it is a distraction. The only way this happens is if you do it outside of the political system within Alberta, outside of Danielle Smith running it, outside of Jason Kenney running it, outside of Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau, outside of anybody else handling it. You have the people who will make up the interim government, and you walk them in there and you say, we're all done. This is it. That's that. No more Alberta government, no more Alberta, and none of this. We're all done. We're independent and we're going to figure it out on our own. And you're all done. That's that. You represent the Crown and the Crown doesn't have any standing here. And that's that. See you later. Done. Absolutely done. Only way to do it. Sorry. That's it. If you don't do that, you're going to get screwed. Moving on just a little bit, let's talk about the 51st state. Here's Donald Trump. This is 3 minutes of Donald Trump talking about Canada and the 51st state. And he talks a lot about Greenland as well. Brian Lilly says Trump's full comments on Canada on Meet the Press, says he will talk 51st state with Mark Carney. Asked about needing military force to annex Canada, he says, no, we won't need military force to annex Canada. This is a minute 12. This is kind of the meat of it. Jason Kenney is taking, he doesn't like what Donald Trump is talking about, and he says, has anyone explained to Donald Trump that Article 5 of the NATO treaty prohibits one NATO state from invading another, or that American military action against Greenland would require all NATO states to defend Denmark? Denmark is well within its rights to invoke Article 4 of the treaty. The parties will consult together whenever, in the opinion of any of them, the territorial integrity, political independence, or security of any of the parties is threatened. And here's a minute long of Trump, and they're talking Canada, etc.
And I asked you if you would rule out military force to take Greenland, and you said no, you don't rule out anything. Would you rule out military force to take Canada?
Well, I think we're not going to ever get to that point. It could happen. Something could happen with Greenland. I'll be honest. We need that for national and international security.
But not with
I think
Canada?
It's highly unlikely. I don't see it with Canada. I just don't see it. I have to be honest with you.
Okay, but you don't rule it out for Greenland.
And by the way, Canada, they spend less money on military than practically any nation in the world. They pay NATO less than any nation. They think we're subsidized. They think we are going to protect them. And really, we are. But the truth is, they don't carry their full share, and it's unfair to the United States and our taxpayers.
But you are not ruling out military force to take Greenland.
I don't rule it out. I don't say I'm going to do it, but I don't rule out anything. No, not there. We need that. We need Greenland very badly. Greenland is a very small amount of people, which we'll take care of and we'll cherish them and all of that. But we need that for international security.
Hold on a second. He said that we'd be the cherished 51st state. Now they're cherishing the people of Greenland? Hold on a second. I feel a little dirty, right? I feel like, don't call it... What's that Beyonce phone song? Call me baby, right? Or say my name, right? Like, don't just call me the cherished 51st state. What's my name? Say Canada. Say Canada. Okay? Come on. The whole thing seems crazy. And this guy says, you're kidding, right? United States, Denmark. And Jason Kenney says, to heck with alliances, treaties, national sovereignty, all that matters is size and power. Might makes right. Michelle? Lovely. And this guy says, F off, Jason Kenney. And I agree with him, because Jason Kenney stood around and watched while the police arrested Artur Pawlowski, because Artur Pawlowski didn't believe Jason Kenney's COVID lies. Okay. And so Jason Kenney, he can just F right off. But it's interesting about this whole 51st state thing. Anyway, we got to say goodbye to the stream. It's like 42 minutes long. Sorry, everybody. It's super long today. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful